Depression is different from regular mood changes and feelings about everyday life. There are people who naturally have mood swings. They're just here this minute, the next minute they're not happy. They're bubbly here, the next minute they're not bubbly, and all of that. But depression is quite different from the regular mood changes and the feelings about everyday life. It can affect all aspects of life, including relationships with family, with friends, and community. It can result from or lead to problems at school, or at work, or in the environment where you're in. But there are certain factors that most definitely contributes to putting people in a depressed state. So it can happen to anyone. It's not something that you say, okay, you're too small to be depressed, or you're too old, you're depressed. It doesn't, some people have money, they have all that it takes to be happy, but they're still depressed. That's to tell you that it's not about the money, it's not about your it's not about specific things. There are people that just get depressed due to abuse. They've lived through abuse, different things. So depression can happen to anyone, and people who have lived through this abuse, severe losses, or other stressful events are most likely to develop depression. Think about a person who has lost a loved one. It's natural for such a person to go straight into depression, and this is because they're used to a setting they're used to a setting condition around them. I always used to share at the time that one of the most terrible points of my life is when I lost my mom, and that can naturally put you in a depressed state. And let me tell you, it can come from time to time. It's not something that you say, okay, I get depressed this minute and I'm healed from that depression, or I'm free from that depression, and then I move on again. It happens from time to time. As long as you get into situations or environments that put you in the condition that drove you into depression in the first place, it's natural for you to keep being depressed. So it can happen to anyone. People who live through abuse, like I said, or losses or stressful events, are most likely to, people who are bullied also, are most likely to develop depression. And according to the statistics, women are more likely to have depression than men. Now let's go into data. An estimated 3.8% of the population experience depression. This report was as at August 2023, and it says that an estimated 3.8% of the population experience depression, including 5% of adults, 4 among men, and 6 among women. And it says 5.7% of adults older than 60 years are depressed. Now, approximately 280 million people in the world have depression. Now, depression is about 50% more common among women than among men. And according to worldwide statistics, more than 10% of pregnant women and women who have just given birth experience depression. And therefore, in those cases, that's when you hear postnatal depression. You hear people say, okay, I have this child, but I just feel like, I'm tired, the stress has got into my brains, and and I feel like just taking my own life. Remember, depression also does lead to suicide. But again, what you can do in such an environment, especially when you are among pregnant women or people who just gave birth and they're feeling depressed, is to ease them of any burden that possibly will be putting them in such a situation. So, according to the statistics, more than 10% of pregnant women and women who have just given birth experience depression. Now, also, more than 700,000 people die due to suicide every year. Now, suicide is the 4th leading cause of death in the last 15 to 29 years. It has been proven that suicide is the 4th leading cause of death. So, although there are known effective treatments for mental disorders, and that's where we talked about antidepressants and all of that, more than 75% of people in low and medium income countries receive no treatment, because we're just somewhere waiting and hoping that maybe something is wrong with my mood, that's why I feel depressed. So most people, 75% in low income and middle countries, they receive no treatment for depression. And barriers to effective care include why they don't get this care: lack of investment in mental health care, lack of trained healthcare providers, and social stigma associated with mental disorders. I mean, last year, in November to December last year, there was a certain psychiatrist that came out to say more people are depressed late last year, more people are depressed. That I think it was Yaba, that mental center in Yaba. It was said that a lot of these people, the facility is literally full because lots of people are depressed. He said some people are not even depressed because of their use of substance or whatever it is that we might like to attribute depression to. Depressed from situations, depressed from things that they have seen around them, depressed from their environment as well. So you see, depression is real. But the painful thing is people end up dying from this because they don't pay attention to it, and we don't seek guidance, we don't seek care for our mental health. So the conversation for today is just basically exposing our minds to knowing when we are depressed, when people around us are depressed, and what we can do to salvage the situation. People around me, I tell them all the time, if something is wrong with you, talk about it. That's the easiest way to get off things easily. Is the easiest way to get off things. When you feel a certain kind of way, it is your responsibility to talk about it, because I might get busy with life, get busy doing my own things, get busy even going through the stuff that I'm going through, and I might not be able to pay attention to you. But if you open up your mouth to say, okay, I'm feeling this kind of way and I don't like it, then help might come. But it is important that we know these things, the symptoms and the patterns of depression, so that we can help the people around us, or if we happen to be in that position, seek help and guidance as well. So now let's move on to the symptoms and the patterns of depression. Now, during a depressive episode, a person experiences a depressed mood, feeling sad, irritable, empty. And you see, most of these people end up becoming so rude because they're sad about how they feel, they're sad about so many things, and so they just want to be on their own. And when they have this constant disturbance from people, they just snap out a little bit, they get irritated, they feel sad and empty. And so you see them most times staring at a vacuum. They're just looking somewhere, actually not paying attention. They can be with you, but they're actually not with you. So during a depressive episode, people happen to have depressed mood, feeling sad, irritable, empty, and may feel a loss of pleasure or interest in activities or participating in anything whatsoever. And again, we're in a society where lots of people happen to be insensitive. Someone is depressed, feeling a certain kind of way, and you're so proud, everybody's doing this, you don't want to do that, everybody's here, you don't want to be there. But you need to understand that a depressive episode is different from regular mood fluctuation. So that's why you cannot just attribute to everything to depression. That's also why you cannot downplay every mood. So the last most of the day, nearly every day, or last for 2 weeks. Now, other symptoms of depression are also present, and they include poor concentration. Like I said, they are with you, but they might actually be somewhere else. Mind has wandered about, they don't actually even know what they're thinking about. Now, second symptoms of depression is feeling of excessive guilt or low self-worth. And this happens most times. I remember one time I was saying here, when you are talking to somebody about something and then you realize that you needed that much more than that person. I don't know how many of us remember that conversation we were having here on air. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves sometimes. We say, oh, this person is like this, I should have been here by now, I should have been there by now, I'm the one who is supposed to be doing this, I'm the one who is supposed to be getting all the accolades this person is getting. So guilt or low self-worth, and then all of these things, all of this pressure we put on ourselves now slowly drives us into depression. So when you see someone feeling excessively guilty, or they now have low self-worth, if you can encourage them, please do. If you cannot, advise them to go to someone who can counsel them, or go to a hospital, just basically talk to somebody. Now, what other symptoms would you know someone is depressed? A person who feels hopeless about the future. It's like, is this how I will continue? My life is this, my life is that. We see this a lot on the internet space. You see it a lot. People keep talking about this thing. So when you see people feel hopeless about the future, that is also a symptom of depression. Now, when people start having thoughts about dying or killing themselves, when people start to have constant thoughts about dying or killing themselves. Because, and these things stem from excessive guilt, it also does stem from low self-esteem. People now start thinking about killing themselves. I cannot do this. Why do I need to do this? Questions here and there that just put you in a very confused state. Next thing, you are anxious. The next thing, you're taking a drastic measure on your life. So yes, thoughts about dying or suicide is a symptom of depression. Also, disrupted sleep. You cannot sleep. Symptom of depression. Changes in appetite or weight. Haven't you seen people who, they don't have a headache, they're not feeling any physical discomfort, but they start to lose weight, they start to lose appetite, they can't eat, all of those things are symptoms of depression, feeling very tired or low in energy. Also, you need to know the difference. So when you are exhausted or you're having a burnout at work, sometimes it can lead to feeling very tired and low in energy and motivated, and then it's time for you to take a break, take your leave, or just look for it, just catch your breath basically. But depression can cause difficulties in all aspects of life, including in the community and at home, at work and school. A depressive episode can be categorized as mild, moderate, or severe. This is now depending on the number and severity of these symptoms that we have listed out, as well as the impact on the individual's functioning. So there are different patterns of depressive episodes, but just for you to note, there are depression. The episode of depression can be categorized into mild, it can be moderate, or it can be severe. And the severe part is the one where you start thinking of taking your life. But also there are different patterns of depressive episodes. First is single episode depressive disorder, meaning the person's first and only episode. So it's just for a moment. It's the first episode, the first and only episode. It's a single pattern of depressive episode. The first one, single episode depressive disorder. This means that the person's first and only episode. The person is going through depression, but it is the first and the only episode. Then we have the second pattern, which is recurrent depressive disorder, meaning the person has a history of at least 2 depressive episodes. Remember, single episode depressive disorder is the person's first and only episode. We're talking about now the different patterns of depressive episodes. The first one, single episode depressive disorder, meaning the person's first and only episode. Then we have recurrent depressive disorder, meaning the person has a history of at least 2 depressive episodes. Then we have the third, and which happens to be categorized as one of the most severe forms of severe patterns of depressive episodes. It is bipolar disorder. Means that the person's depressive episodes alternate with periods of maniac symptoms, which will include euphoria or irritability, increased activity or energy, and other symptoms such as increased talkativeness, racing thoughts, increased self-esteem, decreased need for sleep, distractibility, and impulsive, reckless behavior. On a very good day, we will talk about bipolar disorders as a separate conversation, but that is the third pattern in which depressive episodes manifest itself. I hope that we're picking a thing or two from this conversation. And if you're just joining us, it's the Mind and Body segment of the show, and we're talking about depressive disorder, also known as depression. We mentioned about 5 facts about depression. The first, we say it's a common mental disorder, and according to WHO statistics, it says that globally an estimated 5% of adults suffer from depression. Third says more women are affected by depression than men. Fourth says depression can lead to suicide, and the fifth one says there is effective treatment for mild, moderate, and severe depressions. Let's head out for a bit. When we get back, we'll talk about diagnosis and treatment, or no, we'll not talk about diagnosis. We'll talk about contributing factors and prevention of depression. Then we talk about diagnosis and treatment, and we might eventually talk about self-care. This is the Mind and Body segment of the Midday Extra Show, guys. Please keep it locked in. It's Martha, and I will be right back.
Do you have questions about your health? Well, look no further. On Mind and Body, you are our business. Tune in as we discuss with health experts on everything that concerns you and your well-being. Mind and Body. Mondays, 11 a.m. on Eagles 102.3 FM, Abuja.
Can we play another song?
The good tunes just don't stop.
The good tunes just don't stop. Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja.
Do you have questions about your health? Well, look no further. On Mind and Body, you are our business. Tune in as we discuss with health experts on everything that concerns you and your well-being. Mind and Body. Mondays, 11 a.m. on Eagles 102.3 FM, Abuja.
All right, welcome again and thanks for staying tuned. This is Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja and this is your radio experience you can count on. It's a Mind and Body segment. It's Martha right here and we have been talking about depressive disorder, which is depression. And of course, it is a very common disorder. It's a common mental disorder and it involves depressed mood or loss of pleasures or interest in activities for long periods of time. Now, we mentioned some of the symptoms and the patterns as poor concentration, feeling of excessive guilt or low self-worth, hopelessness about the future, thoughts about dying or suicide, disrupts sleep, changes in appetite or weight, or feeling very tired or low in energy. And we say it expresses himself in three patterns. That's depressive disorder exposes itself in three patterns. Single episode depressive order, meaning the person's first and only episode. We talked about recurrent depressive order, meaning the person has a history of at least two depressive episodes. And then bipolar disorder, meaning that the depressive episodes alternate with periods of maniac symptoms, which include euphoria or irritability, increased activity or energy, reckless behavior, impulsive behavior, decreased sleep for a long period, or distractibility. Now let's talk about contributing factors and prevention of depression. Now depression results from let's say a complex interaction for social, psychological and biological factors. People who have gone through adverse life events like bereavement, unemployment, for some people, unemployment, bereavement, especially when you went to school with these people and every single person there is doing something, is working, and you still don't have your life going on, you still don't have your life in order. Some of these things contribute to depression. So people who have gone through adverse life events are prone to being depressed, like unemployment, bereavement or traumatic events. They are most likely to develop depression, and depression can in turn lead to more stress and dysfunction and worsen the affected person's life situation and the depression itself. So these things are contributing factors to depression. People who have gone through adverse life events, like I said, employment, bereavement, traumatic events, these people develop depression. And if they already have, it can lead to more stress and dysfunction and can worsen the life of the person and can worsen depression itself. So depression is closely related to and affected by physical health. Many of the factors that influence depression are such as physical inactivity or harmful use of alcohol. And that's why I said not everybody who is in a mental facility or is experiencing depression or has a mental breakdown abuse substances. But depression is closely related and affected to physical health and lifestyle as well. So many of the factors that influence depression are physical inactivity. These are many of the factors that influence depression. physical inactivity or harmful use of alcohol are also a known risk factor for diseases such as cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and respiratory diseases. Now, in turn, people with these diseases may also find themselves experiencing depression due to the difficulties associated with managing their condition. But it is caused first by that habit or that lifestyle. And something sponsors the lifestyle. So it's like a circle. You know when they say protect your peace, but protect your gut at all costs. So if you start feeling depressed because you are unemployed, you now start being physically inactive, you now start using alcohol or drugs or substances to help calm your depression. Now, because of all the substances that you have abused, you now be at risk for diseases such as cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and respiratory diseases. Because of this disease now, you start feeling depressed again. So you see that people with these diseases find themselves experiencing depression due to the difficulties associated with managing their condition. So it is important to be vigilant when something, I always say it here, and the likes of Michael the Voice comes laughing. Anything that stresses me to the point that I want to think about my life, taking my own life, I remove myself from that equation as quick as possible. If you want to start feeling disturbed about things, or you are in a circle of people who happen to have accomplished something in their lives, and then you now want to start feeling depressed, or you want to start feeling pressured because you think you have not done anything with your life, it's okay. Sometimes being among these people can motivate you to become better versions of yourself, can now motivate you to want more and pursue more for yourself. But the moment that it moves from motivation to pressure, remove yourself from that situation immediately. So a lot of us put ourselves in this depressive state consciously or unconsciously. Consciously by following people or doing things that we know puts us under pressure. Unconsciously by hanging around environments or people that drives us into depression. So it's important to be vigilant as well. Now, prevention programs have been shown to reduce this depression. Effective community approaches to prevent depression include, school-based programs, advocacy, and all of that to enhance a pattern of positive coping in children and adolescents. Now, interventions for parents of children with behavioral problems may reduce parental depressive symptoms and also improve outcomes for their children. So exercise programs for older persons can also be an effective way to prevent depression. But trust me when I say one of the most effective ways is identify your stressors. These are the things that put you in that condition in the first place. Identify your stressors, then either dissociate yourself from these stressors, or find a coping mechanism or a way that you can deal with situations like that. But these are the contributing factors of depression and how they can be prevented. Now let's go to diagnosis and treatment. There are effective treatments for depression, right? Like psychological treatment and medications. Seek care if the symptoms of depression happen to persist. When doctor will say, if symptoms persist after 2 days, visit your doctor. Seek care if you have symptoms of depression and it's not going away. Seek care. The moment you experience that discomfort, seek care. Now, psychological treatments are the first treatments for depression. They can be combined with antidepressant medications, like I mentioned earlier, in moderate and severe depression. But antidepressant medications are not needed for mild depression, because mild depression is just like the first and the only episode, like we said. So for psychological treatments of depression, for this treatment, they can combine antidepressant medications in moderate and severe cases, but they are not needed for mild depression. Now, psychological treatment can teach new ways of thinking. You see, and that's why a lot of people, when they start feeling depressed, you see them downloading motivational speeches. It's not because they are stupid. They have a condition. Now they have learned to cope with it by conditioning what their mind consumes. What does my eye see? What does my ear hear? And what does my heart conceive? It is important. I'm a Christian, so I'll tell you from my perspective. There's a passage of the Bible that says, "Guard, above all else, guard your heart." So if you're feeling depressed, just be careful what you consume, what your eyes sees, what your ears hear, because they are seeds. They eventually now start to materialize into things that you start to act out eventually. But psychological treatment can, teach you new ways of thinking. That's the psychological aspect of or approach of dealing with depression. It can teach you new ways of thinking, of coping, or relating to others. Now, they may include talk therapy with professionals and supervised lay therapists. Talk therapy can happen in person or online, and sometimes you don't even need a therapist, so to say. I would encourage you to use or employ the services of a therapist. But if you cannot afford it, you have people that you look up to and that exert some level of authority, and that are wise, that can help you through situations like that. But the easiest way to overcome to overcome depression is to talk. Relay your concerns and your problems so that solutions can be found. So you can do talk therapy, and it can happen either in person or online. Psychological treatment may be accessed through self-help manuals, websites, apps. Just check out. Now, excessive psychological treatment for depression is behavioral activation, cognitive behavioral therapy, interpersonal psychotherapy, and problem-solving therapy. And they can also give you antidepressant along this. So it is important. And when they talk about antidepressant, healthcare providers also are very, very careful how they prescribe antidepressant for people, because there are possible adverse effects associated with antidepressant medication. So first of all, always opt for psychological treatments. That's like behavioral activism, in-person therapy, or all of that. Always resort to what they call it again, psychological treatment, rather than do antidepressants. So yes, now let's talk about self-care. This can play a very important role in managing symptoms of depression and promoting the overall well-being of a person. So I'll be telling us some of the things we can do as people, as individuals. I'll be telling us some of the things that we can do to help us through depression. So what can you do? Self-care is very important, but what about self-care can you do? You can try to keep doing activities that you used to enjoy. Stay connected to your friends and family. It's very dangerous for someone who is depressed to be isolated. So if you know that you're depressed and you're looking for active ways to solving that depression problem, try to keep doing activities that you used to enjoy. Also, stay connected to friends and family. Exercise regularly. There's so much exercise does for you, not just for your body, for your mind as well. It expands your mind. It makes you see possibilities or see things from different perspectives. So exercise regularly, even if it's just taking long walks or just short walks. Exercise. Stick to regular eating and sleeping habits as much as possible. Also, avoid or cut down alcohol and don't use illicit drugs. They can make depression even worse. You can also talk to someone you trust about your feelings, or you can seek help from a healthcare provider. Now, if yours has degenerated to the point you are now thinking suicide, it's important for you to remember that you are not alone, and there may be people who have gone through what you are experiencing and have found help. There was something I was going through yesterday. I was just speaking with someone, and I didn't know that the person was going through the exact same thing. Speaking to that person just encouraged me to keep moving on, keep an open mind, and be very objective about things. So you are not alone. If you're having these suicidal thoughts, know that you're not alone. Remember, you're not alone, and many people might have gone through what you are experiencing and they found help. So yes, you also can find help. Also, talk to someone you trust about how you feel. If you're having suicidal thoughts, talk to someone you trust about how you feel. Talk to a health worker, talk to a doctor, a counselor. Talk to somebody. These days, it has become easy. You can even check online and you see these things made available. Now, lastly, you can join a support group. If you're feeling some type of way. So yes, a lot has been done by the World Health Organization, through their mental health action plan from 2013, I think, to end in 2030. And you see, this plan just highlights the steps required to provide appropriate interventions for people with mental disorders, including depression. So yes, when you're going through things like this, also speak to someone. Again, I would emphasize that. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Mind and Body segment of the show, and today we have taken our time to talk about depression, which is a mental stress, a mental disorder that a lot of people are going through. I hope we're able to pick a thing or two from these conversations here. Please do not be depressed. Be encouraged. You're going through some level of stress or what have you. Try your best as possible to dissociate yourself from anything that puts you in a disadvantaged position. Go for a bit. There's no sin in going to clear your head and coming back again to be better and do your job and carry out your activities even more efficiently. It's Martha right here, and I'm signing out until I talk to you again